seat. We will begin our panel. Shall we start? So, once again, I request all the delegates, please take your seat so that we can start our panel. Thank you so much. So, the topic today is long awaited, the insurance and the space ventures, space insurance and the space ventures. And this is the right time that in India we start discussing this topic, and not only discussing, and follow some of the advices which probably and recommendation today we expect to come out of this panel discussion, and we hope that it will be very useful for the not only to the space startups but also for the larger industries who have now started undertaking the space activities directly and no more constrained their role to the being the vendor to ISRO. And then it becomes very important that the space insurance is dealt appropriately in India by the industry. So today we have very distinguished panel and very diversified panel. Again, my compliments to SIA to choose such a distinguished panelist. We have the practicing lawyers, we have the legal fraternity, the academia, we have the industry who is undertaking the space activities, be it satellite or the launch vehicle, and we have the representation from industry, right from the association. So a very diversified panel, and let us take the full advantage of it. I would like to make it more interactive, so no more presentation request. And the final request to all the panelists, please be brief on this your responses so that we can have more and more questions. And some of the questions would be probing question, and I really need the recommendations from this panel, what government should do, what industry should do, and what are the criticalities of the insurance, and some of the emerging areas, the space ventures, which is the second half of our second part of our topic, that especially the OSM, which is the coming up area, the active space debris removal. So we'll talk about that also, and what all the commercial opportunities are available on those. Now coming to the space insurance, you know that there are various types of insurance. So again, we will like to discuss that what are the relevant space insurance for the industry. You know that the space it has different risks as compared to the other sectors, and so it has its own nuances. It is very capital intensive, and we also are governed by the liability convention. So the third party liability, which is again the absolute and complete and unlimited, there are many the words which our lawyers will certainly throw upon, that makes people scary, and then it is very important that how do we address that. So very interesting topic, and we assure you that our discussion will keep you binding, will not allow you to go to the other sessions. That is what my request to the distinguished panels. So let me start with Govindrajan ji. So let us hear from the the industry perspective. Now, from the industry perspective, what is your view that the space insurance, how important it is, how critical it is it really required now in India, and what all the industry should think of it?
Thank you, sir. See, since this topic is both on insurance and space ventures, in the sense it affects both. So both are interconnected. As we all know that because of the reforms that has happened, government is emphasizing more private participation in the space sector, and also we have an objective of reaching a certain percentage of global space economy. For these things to happen, as you rightly mentioned, due consideration to insurance and space ventures are critical, are very essential, no doubt. The importance of insurance obviously gets enumerated there. See, if we agree with that, then what we have to do is we have to develop a sustainable insurance framework for the country. We have to derive whatever is happening globally and try to incorporate. We always talk about indigenization. We also have to think of doing something in the insurance sector also that is good for India and for the Indian private sector. Philosophically, if I want to tell, government, when they are encouraging the private sector participation to come up, that is what has happened in the last couple of years. Lot of especially startups have come up. That means government have done something for the startups to come, and it is also the government's responsibility to make them stand up. So for that, they need to come out with a policy. And then once we make them stand up, they know how to walk and run. So they don't need the government's help. So in the insurance sector, because that is one of the critical areas for the private sector when they deal with. And also, as I mentioned, it is also an important aspect for the space ventures also, because the liability will be on the investors as well. So the government, in my opinion, should give subsidy to the private sector and also ensure that
So
the
I'm
liability
sorry
will
to
be shared.
interrupt Govindrajanji. We will have the second question,
Sure.
what government should do. So let us start first with
The
the
importance
I
of-
wanted to put first things in perspective
Right.
and start ball rolling. That
Right.
what exactly is the whether industry really needs the space insurance, is there a requirement? And then you rightly said yes, because we have seen now the changes in the country. The government of India brought space sector reforms. The number of space startups were there in single digit in 4 years ago. Now we have crossed 250. So a lot of ventures, people are coming up, big industry is taking up, new emerging applications are coming up. There is a relevance for the space insurance. It is no more, you can say that I do not need.
Exactly.
If you don't need, probably government may require you to take that insurance.
Precisely.
That is different thing, but that we will come
We'll
in
come
the
next.
second half
Sure,
of
sure.
the thing. So my apologies first that I did not introduce our distinguished panel, and let me do that first, and then we can have the interactive session, and maybe some of the question you can ask to the relevant the panelist. Govindrajanji, who just now spoke, is the executive board member, SIA-India. So he is representing as a whole the entire industry on behalf of SIA-India. Dr. Ranjana Kaul, sitting on my left, she is a partner in the Dhruva Associates, and Nishith Mishra, he is a member IISL, and also he is the researcher in the Faculty of Law in McGill University, Canada. And Keyur Gandhi, next he is the Director, Space Regulator and Policy, Dhruva Space. Harsh Thakker, he is Vice President, AAIRB. For you, if you do not know about AAIRB, it's Afro-Asian insurance, it's correct, AAIR. So it is Afro-Asian Insurance and Reinsurance Brokers India Private Limited. So we have the very diversified panel. So now my next topic would be the having said that now the insurance is required, space insurance required. Now let us understand the nuances of the space insurance. What are the different types of insurance are there? With my experience and limited experience, when I was in ISRO, now ISRO had the policy to take the space insurance of their satellite if the satellites are launched from the foreign launch vehicle. That was the policy, and the satellite which are being launched from Indian launch vehicle or the undertaking Indian launch, we do not insure. And that policy continues. So I had that time privilege to undertake the insurance of all Indian satellite which were being launched. And there are 2-3 types of insurance which we used to take. One was we used to call it PLEE, which is the pre-launch extra expenses, which starts from the transportation of the satellite to the launch port vehicle, and up to the launch campaign activity, and up to, we call it, used to say, the ignition of the launch vehicle. So what all the anything damage happens to the satellite or any liability arises, that takes care of that. And the second insurance used to be for the launch, or to safeguard the satellite from the de-risk from the launch. And sometimes you used to take from the launch vehicle, launch operator itself. It used to call all launch risk from the Ariane space. So wherein that anything happens to the satellite, either you get the free launch from the launch operator. So that is the insurance of the launch cost, not the satellite. And the third type of insurance, that if satellite is lost, so take the launch, the insurance of the satellite. So that was the third, and that was up to the separation of the satellite from the launch vehicle. So then you cover the risk of the launch. And the fourth type of insurance is the in-orbit insurance. When the satellite is now operational in orbit, till the operation life of the satellite, now if any eventuality happens, then you have cover the risk for the satellite cost. Now this is what I know about the as far as the satellite or the launch. But let us hear from Harsh, who is the quite relevant person to provide the launch insurances or the space insurances to the Indian space industry. So can you throw some more light now? What are the different types of insurances exist? What are the different advantages, and what could be the typical premium? And I know that you will tell the premium depends on so many factors and all, but even then, some sort of ballpark figure is for the new state startup and the systems which have the heritage already.
Right. Good afternoon, sir. And thank you for summarizing all the types of insurance that kind of currently are there. I think I was going to go through the same process, but I won't go, since you already said that. So essentially there are those 4 types even today, the pre-launch, the launch, the in-orbit, and also the third-party liability, which is required by a lot of regulators across the world. I'm not sure if India particularly has currently any regulatory policy that requires that, but I'm sure we can speak about that in some time. There's also a need for a lot more policies today, with smaller satellite constellations, with the private space markets that are there, the different launches. There's also manned missions, and not just with astronauts, but for space flights. So there is also a need for all those new ones as well. So it's no longer limited to the pre-launch and the launch, which happens during ignition and all of that. But there is certainly a very high need for insurance policies. In fact, I would say it's no longer just a safety net that people think that it is. I feel like it's an enabler for the industry, because risk transfer is extremely important in the sense that, even for a company that makes satellites, to be able to transfer that risk onwards to the insurance market gives a lot of semblance to them as well as their investors, which especially in high value products like satellites is a very important aspect. So in terms of your rating that you were saying, It does, I mean, I cannot give you a general rating because it does depend on various factors, but it is usually a percentage or two of the overall sum insured. I think it's also important to note that these policies are usually on agreed value basis. So they agree of the value of the satellite before issuing the policy, as you know. So if, say, for example, it's a $500 million policy, they know that's the value and it's priced accordingly. And one more thing I'd like to add is it is still quite reinsurance driven as a market. I understand when you worked with ISRO that, you know, usually ISRO would price these, you know, sit with, say, a PSU insurance company and price this and set the pricing for it. What ends up happening though for that insurance company is they get a lot of pushback from the reinsurance market because they need that cover for themselves. And the reinsurance market, I mean, usually it's the space players that insure that. And they have their rates and their understanding. So they're pushing the insurance companies.
So I think it's very important. Can you explain now the end-to-end process if a industry now wants to take insurance?
Right.
Take any example. Say they want to undertake a launch, and a launch operator, or if a satellite operator wants to put now its satellite into the orbit. Now, how does it proceed? Now, what are the different stakeholders involved in the process of insurance? There are brokers, there are reinsurers, there are underwriters, and then there is a issuance of the policy. There could be some sort of technical questions, information which would be sought by the underwriters from the operator. So can you explain that? That would be beneficial to the audience here.
Sure. So let's take, you know, Keyur's example. He's right, you know. So let's say he needs insurance for his satellite. Ideally, he would reach out to a broker like me. What I do is traditional insurance, but also reinsurance broking. So I will reach out to the local insurance markets and ask them if they would be willing to insure that, have a conversation going with them. That would be the, you know, the interaction between him, myself, and the insurance company here. This then doesn't relate to them. What happens next is that the insurance company will want to protect their own balance sheet. So they will want to reinsure themselves against the risk. And that traditionally, as a reinsurance broker, I would go to the, you know, world market, usually Lloyd's in London, that has consortiums of specifically space insurance. And they would reinsure these products. And the underwriter would basically be either the insurance company underwriter or a reinsurance underwriter. And they have a bunch of technical questions that they would like usually to rate these risks. Yeah.
Okay. So in summary, what I can probably add to it and what you have told, that there are the brokers, there are the insurer who will issue the policy, and there are the reinsurers, and which will be distributed, which would be approached for distributing the risk by the insurer.
Right.
Now, as far as the say our Indian industry is concerned, they will approach the broker, and broker will do everything for them. But the policy will come from the insurers, not from the broker, number one. And also the risk distribution, while assessing the premium, the underwriters of the insurer or the reinsurers will ask all the technical information about your product. What is the heritage? What experience the particular company has got in the particular area of making the satellite? What is the intended use of the particular satellite or the launch vehicle? And what is the reliability figure, the quality aspect, what all the facilities are the quality assurance practices being followed by the particular operator. It is qualification model or the production model or the space qualified model. All those very probing questions would be asked, and then the premium would be decided, right? And the premium, of course, depends on many factors. One is what is your heritage, what is your intended use, is there, and most important, is there any failure or any claim to the insurance industry previously or immediate preceding, so that automatically the premiums jumped out. So there are many aspects which decide the premium.
Absolutely.
And the premium would vary for the different types of insurance. The third party liability insurance, probably depending on the quantum of assured value, the premium vary, but it would be very negligible percent.
Yeah.
It could be very, very small percent, less than 1%, and also if it is a launch vehicle risk, certainly the percentage could be 7, 8, 10 also, depending on the what is the market. If it is in orbit satellite, it could be 1.5%. This is what I know, and
Yeah.
of course you can give me the correct the figures
Right,
and
right.
all. So this is what generally is the total the premium. And
Yeah.
Is it correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. So thank you very much for throwing some lights on the types of insurance and all. Now let us talk about the third party liability. Now, which is very, very important aspect in even insurance, as well as if any upstream activities have to be undertaken, either satellite launching or the undertaking the launch operation, or even doing the in-space servicing or manufacturing and all. So we have Nishith with us. So Nishith, first of all, what exactly is the third party liability? What, as far as the industry is concerned, how it is relevant for them, because it is again basically a liability convention, which is the member countries are the signatory, but how the industry should know about this, how it is relevant for them, and is there any type of insurance requirement should be there? If you can overall talk about the liability, third party liabilities.
Thank you, Dr. Jain.
And I'm sorry, again, one more question in that continuation is, there could be two types of third party liability. One is under liability convention, wherein the other countries are involved, and other one could be within the country. So that also could be, the claim could come from any third party. The third party could be other than who are the stakeholders. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Jain. Good afternoon, everyone. So today's broader theme was India's growth towards global journey. So it is imperative that we understand the international framework. This liability comes from what we call the Outer Space Treaty, Article 7, and specifically the Liability Convention. Okay, so the liability comes from Article 7 of the Outer Space Treaty and specifically the Liability Convention. Under the Liability Convention, there are two types of liability. One is when the damage happens on ground or to an aircraft in flight, which is what the second part of your question comes to, that the same rocket body or the same asset could fall within the country and it could attract liability by the person who's been injured. And then there is an international liability in outer space, which is when the asset is operating, any space asset is operating in outer space. If fault is established and a damage is concerned, there is a third party liability. Now this is the international framework under which third party liability comes. Typically, because Indian Space Research Organization has been doing most of the activities, we have never needed to think a lot about this. But now that private actors are coming up in a big way, I think third party liability insurance, which is why comes into the picture in a big way. Now, I've noticed that under the Norms, Procedures and Guidelines, Norms, Guidelines and Procedures 2024, Chapter 8 and Chapter 10 are two sections which talk about liability provisions. Chapter 8 talk about an applicant, which can be any private owner or operator of a satellite, and Chapter 10 talks about the launch operators and their liability. So the provisions are that they're required to obtain mandatory liability insurance if required by InSpace. So there is some discussion that we need to have about what that implies. And this is the broad matrix about what we understand as third-party liability. The critical factor in space is that when we talk about India's growth in a global journey, we need to understand that to prove fault of a party in outer space, which is where, say, the Indian government becomes liable to pay for damages. So if any damage is caused by an asset or a launch operator based out of India or authorized by India, which we call as Indian entity, then the Indian government is liable to pay compensation because the international treaties work at a state-to-state level. Then there are provisions that the Indian government can claim the further compensation from the parties concerned, provided there is fault. Now the fault factor is a little important because we notice that most of the evidence that is required to establish fault today lies with a majority of the major spacefaring nations. So 2 or 3 countries who maintain space situational awareness and space traffic management facilities, they are the ones tracking all of these satellites. They are the ones that's going to tell us where the debris came from, or who was at fault, who should have maneuvered a satellite and failed to maneuver. So these are the aspects that will be up and coming, and these are the aspects that we need to consider irrespective of third-party liability insurance.
Thank you, Nishith, for pointing out the third-party liability. And you have referred the NGP document, and I'm sure that the startups or industry who are undertaking this space activity also might have gone through our NGP, which is brought out by InSpace in respect of the authorization. Now, in that third-party liability, you have rightly pointed out that is written that if required by InSpace, an insurance might be asked, and the concerned applicant may have to opt in the insurance. And right now, yes, it is more or less case-by-case basis. We are also still considering that whether to make a space insurance mandatory or not, and that we would like to discuss here also, and then we take how we can facilitate our industry, which is coming up now, still in the nascent stage, initial stage, I should say, not the nascent stage. That how do we really do the de-risk management, I should say the risk management, and how they can de-risk their liabilities and all which are arising out, and what could be the government role, and maybe that would be our second round when we discuss about it. So now let me now move to Keyur. So let us change the little bit topic from the space insurance to the space venture, but again the space venture and insurance together, that would what I would request Keyur to address. Now Dhruva Space is doing the I think more or less entire upstream activity, which requires basically the space insurances and all. So you have the small satellites also, and you also do the access to the space, some of the deployers and other things also you are making. So 2 things. One is that what is the economies of the small satellites which you are undertaking, and also the access to the transport, access to the space. And how do you feel that space insurance is required on for those activities? Is it really critical for you? Even if the government does not ask you, are you willing to take up the insurance, and do you feel that is critical for you?
Thank you, sir, for that question, and thank you to the co-panelists for the wonderful context setting as well. I think when we talk of the economies of small sat, what we are really referring to is how the cost and ease of access to space is changing. Cost of access to space is decreasing, ease of access to space is increasing. This gives rise to 3 primary categories of operators, sir. So first is an operator who is probably undertaking their first few missions, where there is a lot of risk riding on the first mission, not from the third-party liability itself, but also from the performance of the asset. Then comes the second nature of mission, which is smaller independent missions, which are not necessarily mega constellations. I'll come back to why it is segmented in this way. And third is, of course, deployment of constellations in itself. But all these efforts are focused towards improving access to space, because today when for the upstream, the customer is the downstream. We are seeing nations rely a lot on space-based applications and data to do critical growth for the country. Now, how does insurance work in this part? Of course, de-risking is what we all prefer, from the third-party in-orbit liability perspective to also assuring assets in the pre-launch and the launch phase. But today, this shift from big geostationary satellite operations to LEO-centric operations has happened very fast, where the economics of insurance does not necessarily match up with the economies of a mission. For example, in a rough range, for a small satellite mission, the insurance cost may go up to 10 to 20%, depending on what is the heritage. It gets better with heritage. In that case, when someone has 100 rupees, 10 rupees is a very big amount. But when someone has 1,000 rupees, 10 rupees is not a big amount. This is to keep it very, very simple without getting into complex economics of it. But we also see active efforts from the insurance industry now on wanting to work with the small satellite economy, and how this economy can further will be seen in the coming years. Coming to third-party in-orbit liability, there are several questions, right? Because we don't look at it in isolation of what is the insurance amount to be paid. Like Nishith rightly pointed out, there is a looming question of what has been the precedence of any proven damage to another asset from a satellite. There are concerns about who holds that ability, or where is that technology to really see what has been the damage from small piece of debris to another asset. And we look at it as a threat. When we rationalize it into a risk, the risk comes out to be much, much, much smaller. So that is the overview of small sat economics. And just as a reference point, when we look at the preferred orbit where most of the assets want to be deployed, which is today roughly between 450 to 650, which is where maximum crowding of the satellites and mega constellations is. We are noticing an increasing trend on the tolerance rate at which certain mega constellations have started doing their maneuvers. So another question comes is there any common consensus on what is expected in orbit behavior? Only then we can start seeing whether we are at fault or not, what should be the technology that we work towards, and the de-risking and economics we should work towards. It has to be seen together, not in isolation.
Okay. Thank you, Keyur. You have touched upon now that topic of space debris, and which is really becoming a threat also. And certainly, although at one side it is a real threat for the space ventures and all our space assets which are already there in the space. At the same time, it also provides the commercial opportunities to others. So like active space debris removal is one of the coming up things, and where even in India also, in space we are seeing some of the queries, and some of the startups have also started thinking and undertaking this activity. Plus some of the things are there like OSM, we call it, the on-orbit servicing, assembly and manufacturing, which also in a way helps in the space debris removal, because naturally once you extend the life of the space object, the need for sending the new and more space object also reduces. So in a way you are now also trying to decongest the space, or rather preventing the congestion of the space. So ma'am is there with us. She has good expertise and have been doing a lot of work in the space debris, active space debris removal, as well as OSM. So just throw some more light on this. What are the nuances of that? Is it, because this is upcoming area, is really commercial opportunity exists for the Indian industry? What all should be the regulations, whether should be there on this particular area? And is there any way we can connect it to the space insurance? Is it really would be important in this area also right now? Over to you.
If you don't mind, may I just make a comment or two about what some of them have said? So when you're talking about what is orbital behavior, what would be the best standards or the minimum standards? Well, your regulator has already provided you that you need to have a points person where 24/7 you'll have somebody in contact. So it's not working. So 24/7 you have to have a points person who's in touch and in contact. Second of all, when you see debris, which is to say that which is a unintentional threat, it doesn't have the ability to maneuver. And then what do you have to do? You're recommended to take SSA. If you cannot get it, you may ask the regulator. He's telling you what to do. What happens if there's an active satellite, you can't get in touch with him, so forth, so forth. So as far as you are concerned, you have instructions on how to de-risk the physical safety of your physical asset, right? You don't have to overthink the situation. The regulator is under Article 6 responsible for ensuring that the national activities, which is all activities, military, civil, commercial, are in conformity with the treaty. So which is that article in the treaty? You go to Article 9. Due regard to the corresponding interest of all other states. Your regulator is telling you that firstly, debris, sustainability, you make sure that you're not colliding, you do a CAM. Contact the opposite party. If he's not doing well, the only option then is for you to keep him informed 24/7. And after that also. So he's not going to be telling you that, look here, the thing is this, as you heard Professor Shobal, I am putting my liability all on you. I mean, not my liability, but my responsibility. And now your job is that you have to make sure that you do not, that you fulfill India's obligations, international law. How can you do that? You're not the state. The treaty is between sovereign. He's not asking you to do that. He can't. He knows he can't. So he's giving you those instructions. So that is the whole point of your orbital. The second is that the treaty itself doesn't use the word insurance at all. And so where does that come from? It comes from the fact that the state is absolutely liable and responsible. So therefore, where there is third-party liability or, during transportation or launch and so forth, how can he de-risk himself? That is where that requirement for insurance for commercial. So that's one part, right? The second part is, in fact, Dr. Goenka spoke about on-orbit servicing yesterday. So now if you're looking at on-orbit servicing, what are you thinking about? You're thinking about conjunction of the service provider and the client, the receiver. So there has to be that docking. In fact, we have successfully or in the process of so forth. So that's the first part of the technology that a commercial company would have to on-orbit demonstrate. So what kind of insurance would that technology demonstration sort of thing require is for our insurers to tell us. After that, the question is, how do you classify this conjuncted entity? Your treaty says space object as in singular. This is now like composite. Is it a space object? Is it two space objects? If there is damage while servicing is underway, who is going to be liable and to what extent? If there is a piece of debris coming along and you have got warning from your SSA service provider that there's a probability, what do? Will you both disengage and then go your own way because you have the ability to maneuver out, the other chap doesn't? Or the vice versa? There are many, you have to sit and actually plot out each and everything to understand what that liability is and what the possibilities are. Why do you want in-orbit servicing? For the very reason that you want to keep space sustainable. You want to prolong the life so that you don't need to launch one more, right? And the same is, but there are different nuances to assembly and to manufacturing, so I won't go into that, but basically this. So the question arises is as to the liability. Those kinds of aspects for on-orbit servicing are extremely important. Then, of course, your service provider provides service, he disengages, and now he's got to park himself somewhere or the other until the next client comes up. At the moment, the international trend is that companies who are in the very nascent stage of providing this are doing it for their own constellations within that own country. And so they have worked out their arithmetic with their regulator. But if you're thinking about being a service provider per se, then you need to be in contract with the opposite party, whether it's a state or whether it's a commercial entity. The question that then arises is that when this is conjuncted, you also have a question of jurisdiction and control. Who is exercising jurisdiction and control on the composite? he exercises as the client jurisdiction control for a satellite that he has authorized. His country has authorized him. It exercises jurisdiction and control. That satellite is on the register of respective registers. Now this is together. During that phase of servicing, who will exercise jurisdiction and control if there is a piece of debris coming? Who will take that decision? Or will these two now be arguing with each other and saying that, no, not me, you? How is it? These are very complex problems. Europe has also started, and it's a very good thing for us to understand what kinds of practices are emerging outside the country. And if we want to do this, then first, I would think that we have a strategy paper to say that, okay, fine, now these are all the aspects, these are all the risks, what should I do?
Right.
Thank you.
So, thank you, ma'am. Of course, just to as a part of information, that now InSpace is working on the guidelines for this area also, especially the space situational awareness for the service provider, including the all types of services of SSA, STM, conjunction analysis, apart from OSM, space exploration, and so on. Very shortly, we'll be bringing out the guidelines, and we are taking help of many experts in this area within the country. So now, let us come to the second important point here, and which is important for the industry. How do we enable now the industry to undertake all the activities, which is what government intent was when we opened up the space sector for the industry. The important thing is that space is a very high risk proposition, and how do they de-risk themselves? They are putting a lot of money in the whatever their activity which they are undertaking, and which way the government now can help them to de-risk themselves. So of course the responsibility lies with them. Everything cannot be done by the government, and for that the insurance is certainly one of the very good tool to de-risk themselves. What type of measures do you propose which government should take? We know that there is some sort of concept of the pooling, insurance pool, creating a pool wherein the government also can put something, then the other industry put something, and then that there is a pool, and which can be used to obtain or secure the insurances. It could be any other model also. So let us, can we discuss on that? And I give anyone who wants to speak on that rather than I take the individual views on that. What could be the different measures which government can take to enable the industry to de-risk themselves, their businesses?
We have got excellent moderator. Because he poses questions and he gives answers also. That's not very good, sir.
Basically, my idea is to focus only on the particular question.
What it means is it's a very complex situation. You cannot have one answer for these kind of things. Basically, what we have understood by listening to the experts is insurance is required. Insurance is a de-risk factor and also covers the liability. This much we have understood. And what we have also understood from our friend, so each one is passing the buck. One wants to take insurance to de-risk, another like this. It goes and it stops somewhere. In the same way, United Nations also, because of the treaty, it also de-risks by putting the onus on state, making the satellite as a state subject, and state is responsible. So each one is doing this. That means what? In my opinion, each country complying to the international law and regulations should formulate their own guidelines and policies to suit their requirement. This is exactly what you said. Since this is what I also wanted to tell, Dr. Jain mentioned, that why not we look at creating a reinsurance, domestic reinsurance pool, so that the reliability on the foreign underwriters will come down. So it also increases the participation, so the premium also hopefully will come down, de-risk the companies. So this is one thing what I wanted.
Any other view or any other suggestion? Yeah.
So there could be some measures that when we explore various international models, what governments have been doing is they've been supporting their private companies differently. So US, for example, determines what is a maximum probable loss, which is what the regulator determines is what the private company needs to insure. Beyond that, they have established like an indemnity fund, which pays for international liability. This is one model, which Australia also follows. Then there is UK, Belgium, and countries like that that follow our model, which is like the case-by-case model, but they have various parameters laid down on the basis of which regulators decide this. Then there comes the governments that are actively promoting their space sector, like Argentina, Brazil, and they've said we are going to take on all of the liability. From the insurance side, there are certain certifications globally. For example, the space sustainability rating is one such certification. Then Lloyd's has their own kite mark rating. So if our regulators could, because they are the ones assessing all of the applications, they are going into the technical details, they are understanding the nuances. So if India could develop an indigenous sustainability rating, then that will be fantastic in projecting India's image in a way that is that promotes business. This is important because I understand, I was told by Rajiv ji that one of the discussions that came up in Ahmedabad was that when the outside insurers come in, they're asking for a lot of data and proprietary data, and there are IP issues related to it. Why is this necessary? Exactly because of de-risking measures. So they want to understand all the risks that an asset or a launch possesses or possess to the international community. But there's a deadlock of sorts in the sense that how much data does the private companies are willing to share, how much does the government allow them to share, and how much does the international community want from private companies. So these are very careful and delicate balances that we need to strike. And therefore, sort of like sub-guidelines or a sustainability rating, India's own sustainability rating, because now we have so many private companies. So this could be an entirely new sector of activities or space activities which some of you can undertake. And it's not very difficult because internationally we have all of these parameters. We just need to import it. We need to convert it in terms of our purchasing power parity and other advantages that we have, and then sort of lay down these small things in terms of regulator enablement, in terms of government covering for an indemnity cap, which is where we are saying, say, it is my own view that we shouldn't be following the maximum probable loss because we have an advantage in terms of purchasing power parity. But in terms of an average loss or a minimum probable loss, which the private companies need to carry on, and anything above and beyond that, if it happens. And this again, the last point is this is important because in space, say a private company's asset is $500,000 US, but it can cause damage to a third-party liability to another state, which is a $400 million US satellite. So there is no business parity in outer space. The only thing that saves most of these claims is the difficulty in proving fault. So these are some of the measures that we think we should be talking about. As Ranjana ma'am said that we should be coming up with a white paper to start a discussion or like a sort of guideline, and we can take it from there.
Okay. Keyur?
I think I would like to take a minute
And
to
please
just...
be brief.
Yes, sir. I'll just take 1 minute extra to put this all in context when we talk of, there being a conjunction, one satellite colliding with other, or safe practice perhaps. What do regulators usually look at while they're trying to authorize the mission? Let's take one standard, for example, publicly accessible, the NASA standard. Damage doesn't just come from one satellite going and hitting another satellite in orbit. It comes from small piece of debris flying out from some satellite. It also comes from there being any potential for breakup or any separation in orbit which doesn't go as planned. And when we run these numbers, there's also a software, again, publicly accessible. It's the Kara software of NASA. Anyone can use it. the maximum possibility of damage today is not from large objects which can be tracked or objects which are functional satellites. The maximum possibility of damage is from very small objects, which is under 10 centimeter. And this debris could have come from anywhere, starting from a ASAT test that happened years back to some satellite or from any other satellite from where there was some flyaway part that has come in the course of operation. And there's no real way to, again, attribute this because of technical
So that is why we are
limitations.
talking about the insurance, because it is
Correct.
any risk. It
Any
could be,
and all
it could
risk.
come from
Correct.
and you cannot anticipate.
Correct, sir.
So
Which
that
is
is
where
how the
complementing-
answer is insurance. Only thing we were discussing that how do we make actually the insurance affordability also to
Yes, sir, which is-
the industry, because the premiums and all also, and they are all startup. They are the new
Absolutely.
coming up. So that was the thing.
No, sir, absolutely. So the point that I was trying to make is, like Nishith ji said, regardless of the cost of the asset, the risk for everyone is the same because it is a common risk. When we look at de-risking, I think it has to be a mix because of the kind of diversity that we have in the space sector. We also have legacy operators, we have people who want to, companies who want to launch constellations, and we also have missions which are going on for the first time. So if there could be a mix between some promotional measures for someone who are undertaking new technology demonstrations, new missions, etc., where perhaps on the technical side assessment could be stronger versus constellation players where there is repeatability in the missions, there is some foreseeability on how safe the missions are, and then using insurance as one of the tools where there has to be effort from industry, government, and industry both, space sector and insurance.
Thank
So
you.
that's
Last word from madam. And just to respond to Nishith thing, see the maximum probable loss and the which is being followed by US, Australia, in space also has studied. In fact, when we are coming out, the advice to take the insurance for a particular say launch and all, we do have the process, we do follow the process of calculating the maximum probable loss, and we don't give it up to the applicant to calculate and give it to us. We ourselves do, and we ask all the relevant technical information and question. So we do follow those type of the calculations when we do the case by case basis assessment of the insurance. So ma'am, last word from you.
Well, there was a question of what has ever been the previous experience for payout. Well, there hasn't been. And there hasn't been because there's only one instance of a live satellite which collided with a derelict Russian, Soviet satellite. And this was the Iridium satellite. Now the question is, it's fault-based liability up there. So with fault-based liability means contributory negligence becomes an essential part of that regulatory process or that assessment. It turns out that they had already received SSA probable collision twice before, and they had taken a commercial risk that I think ye nikal jayega or nikal gaya, because they did not want to expend their fuel and their money and so forth to actually do the cam. The third time unlucky, and they were not able to claim anything. They did not put forward a claim because Russia, of course, had all the information of how much kind of service. So that becomes critical. So your regulator telling you that please consider SSA, and if you can't find somebody, come to me, I'll help you with it, is a very, very valuable bit of guidance or instruction, call it what you will.
So I will take another 2-3 minutes. It's a very important question which I want to pose to the distinguished panel. See, we were discussing within the government about the insurance, and what the view which one of the views came that space insurance is generally the risk is distributed globally, and we do not have really any reinsurers or space insurance in India. So what is happening finally is the insurance business per se, it's going outside India. Now what should we do wherein the insurers or the maximum the business coming from the out of space insurance remain in India? We have a lot of insurance company in India, there are public sector, there is the private companies also, Indian companies are there. Now, what exactly can be done? Where because this is another opportunity, is the insurance opportunity for the insurers, and you are the one of the brokers, right? And you are based in India. So, what exactly we should do, a government should do, in
So-
terms of the regulation, in terms of the policy?
So firstly, it's not a very bad thing that the reinsurance market is spread across the world, because when there is a loss, you want that loss to be spread across. But you're absolutely right that we do need reinsurers in India as well. Now, traditionally, there are a lot of insurance companies that act like reinsurers, so they could, be the first ones to reinsure and have specific specific programs and things like that for satellites especially. What the government can do is, as we spoke about pools, like there's a nuclear pool, there's a terrorism pool, same way we can have a space pool as well. The only thing is, before we have a space pool, we'll need a lot of those space policies to be issued to be able to pool them. And one step before that, and I think this is the crux for the insurance industry in general, is data. I think if that data is shared, with ISRO and SIL, all these companies, with the private market. Now, obviously, all data cannot be shared because there are IP constraints. But as much as data, previous like heritage data and things like that, that can be shared, would be really helpful in a lot of ways in different aspects within the industry. Not just to price it, but also to have an understanding, and obviously to underwrite it as well. So those are the few things that I can think of that the government can do. And also third-party liability, if it's not already mandated, it should be. I think that's extremely important as well.
Yeah. Third-party liability, of course, it's a matter of state, certainly.
Yeah.
And the state would be worried about the third-party liability. It could own up at the entire thing in order to facilitate. It could pass on some of the risk through the insurance and making it the insurance mandatory. And those type of policy anyway being discussed, probably will come up also with soon some of those guidelines and policy on that. But the third-party liability is only one of the aspects.
Absolutely.
But the important thing is the industry also to have their own insurance because government will not, government will take care of third-party liability.
Yeah.
But what about their own risk?
Exactly.
Our own ventures. So for that they have to go for the space insurance.
Yeah, absolutely.
And once they have to go for a space insurance, now they should know about the insurance. They should have the adequate ecosystem within the country to take the insurance, and the process of insurance, which takes a lot of time,
Absolutely.
that also has to be reduced, because now because of the involvement of the global reinsurers, it takes a lot of time. And the questions which comes from the underwriters.
Right.
And the willingness of the industry to share the new technologies and all that thing. So these are some of the difficulties which all of together we have to really do some more brainstorming,
Right.
and maybe some more such type of platform if we get. And we have already had one brainstorming session with the insurers, including the industry, along with CII that time. And maybe we will also have some more brainstorming session to get more insights to the views of the industry and all the stakeholders. Thank you very much for your patience listening, and thank you very much for the distinguished panel to throw more lights and more insights on the subject. Thank you very much. With that, I hand it over to the organizers.
Before we break, I would like to take a moment to extend my heartfelt gratitude to all the dignitaries on the dais. Thank you for gracing us with your presence, for sharing your insights, for making this session truly enriching. Your valuable contributions have added great meaning to today's gathering, and we are truly honored to have you with us. As a token of gratitude and appreciation, we now present mementos to our eminent panelists. May I now request Dr. P.K. Jain to present memento to Mr. D.S. Govindrajan. To Dr. Ranjana. Mr. Nishith. To Mr. Keyur Gandhi. And to Harsh. May I now request Mr. Pawan Kapoor, Member Executive Board, SIA India, to present memento to the chair of the session. But for the photo, you can take this. Now, I will request everyone to move forward for the group photo. Thank you everyone for joining us for this session. We now invite you all to join us for the lunch, which will be served until 2:15. We kindly request everyone to be back in this hall by 2, as we have very exciting and insightful session coming up that you surely wouldn't want to miss. Thank you.